Welcome back once again to the YouTube channel. We have another video review of another Sun Eater book. This is Ashes of Man, book 5, Christopher Ruocchio. I'm kind of cruising through the series at my pace. It may be slow for other people. I've been enjoying it so far. I know I wanted to add other videos that aren't just Sun Eater review videos, but here we are. And we're just going to keep making these videos as long as we have books to read. So we've got 2 more after this, and then we'll be done with Sun Eater, and maybe I'll do other things. But anyway, I wanted to give a few things that I liked and didn't like about this book, and run over some of the bigger themes that I feel are in this. And I've got a couple glaring errors that I think glaring. I don't know. They're not the. I think they're things that maybe have been overlooked, and maybe I'm ignorant in that. But we can talk about it. I want to keep this as free-form thought, mind, just going on the river of my brain as I can, as minimal amount of cutting as possible. So I'm going to try to be succinct and clear with that. I've got some notes in front of me here. I've got a little bit of tea in my Acadia National Park cup, and let's get into it. First of all, overall, I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading it. It had some really interesting moments. Oh, and this is a spoiler review, obviously, by the way. I know maybe I've said it before, but Ruocchio himself doesn't really care for spoilers, or at least he doesn't care for spoiler alerts. He's fine with things getting spoiled. And the book kind of does that, especially from the very beginning. Hadrian telling a story says, hey, everything that's going to happen, here's what happens. It's called a Sun Eater because eventually I'm going to destroy a sun. I'm going to kill millions of people. I'm going to destroy millions of lives, whatever. These are the things that have been told about me. Some of them are true, some of them aren't. Here's my part of the story. And so I think it's kind of set up in a way to allow for somebody to say, oh, is that the book where this thing happens? And you're like, well, I haven't read it yet. It's like, it doesn't really matter because spoilers aren't really the biggest thing here. But having said all that, I am still personally a fan of reading the things and finding out the things as they happen, not beforehand. And so this is a spoiler review. Be warned if you haven't read the book yet. Having said that, I think this is the first one so far that does not begin with a time jump, and you can correct me if I'm wrong there, but it begins exactly where book 4, Kingdoms of Death, ended, and that's because initially this was written as one book. Kingdoms of Death and Ashes of Man joined as one book, split up for publication reasons, and I think it was a good split. I think this one actually, weirdly enough, I think this one stands on its own a little bit better than Kingdoms of Death does. Now, they're different in ways because Kingdoms of Death is primarily focused on that Cielcin imprisonment section on the Cielcin planet world ship. And there's obviously this section earlier on where he's interacting with the Lothrians, but most of it, you're going to remember it for him being tortured by the Cielcin. This book has a few different beats to it. It has the beginning where Gibson has just died and he needs to move on, and he knows he has to interact with the Emperor. He goes back to Madelo House and he heals. Then he interacts with the Emperor. Then he goes and does a mission. Then he comes back and interacts with Alexander, and the Emperor's been captured. And then he goes and tries to get the Emperor back. And then that's the rest of the book, is the Emperor getting re-saved again. And I think we see the biggest character change in the Emperor here. And as well, I mean, Hadrian is scared and he's having a hard time fighting because of all the trauma that he's gone through, to say the least, during book 4. But I guess we can get to characters in a minute. Getting back to the plot beats, I do think this one, I just said a minute ago that I think this one stands on its own a little bit more. And I guess what I mean by that is it feels a little bit more concise as far as like starting and ending. Whereas even though I think the split between books 4 and 5 is pretty seamless, I do think that it feels slightly abrupt at the end of book 4. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. It maybe need more reading or more opinions on it. This one felt a little bit more clean. I I will say I was vindicated in a sad way. I think last video I predicted that Volca will die, and Volca does die in this book. Although it was very strange because my brain is jumping all over the place, not very streamlined. I was expecting, although I will say this is probably the crux of this story is Volca's dying. That's the thing that you're gonna take away. You know, if you can pin each book on one peg, what needle are you going to thread that with? You know, book 4 is okay. Book 1 is the Colosseum, probably. Book 2 is the probably Vergassus and Carnsegara. Book 3, for me, I mean, they're kind of blending together as I'm thinking about them. Book 3, I think him on Forum for so long, and actually probably now that I'm remembering, it's probably that quiet scene on the mountain. Book 4 is going to be him just being tortured for like half the book. Book 5 is Volca dying. And so I thought that she died. I expected that to happen in this book or the next, and it felt like we needed to like sever some ties in a way. And I did say, you know, if all of the other cast dies, most of the other cast dies in book 4, it would make sense to give Volca's death an entire section on its own, just to separate them. And that is kind of what happened. Nobody else really of note dies around her in this book. And I will say I was kind of tricked because while I thought that would happen, while I thought that she would die, the way that it happened, I thought we would get more of a, like them being proximate, them being close together for that to happen, him holding her as she's dying, trying to figure out something else to do, you know, regaining his quiet ability to channel different timelines. And it's like, and maybe all timelines she's dead, or maybe he's fighting for that power and he can't find it, and so then he's mad at the quiet or so. I was expecting something more personal rather than just them getting separated, and then she gets into a different shuttle, and then the shuttle gets shot down and she dies. And yeah, there was, you know, the hologram. They're kind of talking to each other, sort of, and then she's about to say "I love you," and then she dies. And, you know, pages before that, she mentions, yeah, I think we should have a kid, kind of out of nowhere. And throughout the book, she's like, let's leave. Let's stop fighting. Let's leave. Let's do something else. And so all that stuff leads you to expect this to happen. And so it does happen. But I did really think that while she would die, I thought they would have one final like physical moment together while she was dying, is I guess what I'm saying. But overall, I thought the way that she died was okay. It's not what I would have expected. Maybe not what I would have done. And it doesn't mean that this was the right or wrong way to do it. I do think his suffering and his grieving beyond that was actually pretty well done, pretty well written. He drinks a lot. He's really sad. He just doesn't want to interact with anybody. He goes in front of the emperor again, and the emperor kind of says, "Hey, man, she was just a lady. Like, why do you care? We'll get you another one." You know, and that's it's kind of telling of who the emperor is and the way that he views relationships and the way that the nobles view relationships that are so different to what Hadrian has experienced throughout the entire story so far. And so then him punching the emperor makes sense. And I think that was something that we, you know, in a way, you're maybe victorious as readers. You're like, yes, you know, we kind of got one up on somebody being mean. I will say, you know, talking about characters, I think the emperor, when they're on the planet, they're on Perfugium, I believe. And even if that's the accurate planet that they're on, I don't know that I pronounced that correctly, but they're on this planet that the final Armageddon thing is happening, and he won't leave until they've like sent everybody off. And to me, it's such like a missed understanding of how conflict works. Multiple times they say, "Hey, Emperor, you should leave. You should get off this planet." And maybe there's a chance that they stop bombing the planet and stop attacking the planet, because really it's just you. They want you so that they can destroy you visibly in front of everybody else. And that will be a sign to show, hey, look, this is how weak your emperor is. This is how weak the idea of an emperor is, and your entire imperium is collapsing. That's what they wanted. They wanted to have this symbol of destruction. If you're not there, you know, I mean, maybe they'll just keep destroying the world or they'll subject it. But this idea that he has, and I get that, okay, he's for like 2 years, he's hidden underground and he's with these men and he sees all these people now and he's a lot more personal to it. But in some ways, it felt like this is a forced way for us to make Valka die. Because you know, Hadrian saying it was your fault, it's not really an invalid take. It's kind of true. Any ship could get shot down. You know, there's no way to prove which ones would or wouldn't get shot down. The other side of that coin is like, wait until Lynn arrives. You know, we're so rush, shoot everything down. Why isn't Lynn? You know, I don't know. And Lynn was there, I guess, but it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. It's hard not to think that some of these things weren't set up by Ruocchio as a way just to kill Valka and make it sad. Rather than what would realistically happen. It didn't feel like this was the only option. It's like, man, there's nothing else that could be done. She just had to die. I don't know. So maybe I have a little bit of a gripe with that. But I thought that the Emperor's shift there was a little bit odd. Alexander tries to kill Hadrian because he just thinks he's a threat to the throne, which is, I guess, interesting. And then he needs help. And then he still tries to get him killed at the very end. He just kind of becomes the worst character in the entire series. He was fine in what book? Is it book 2 that he's in or book 3? Book 3, I guess. He was fine. It was, he was this kid, you know, and then he gets slighted by Hadrian. Hadrian says, yeah, I don't want him anyways. He's annoying, which is understandable why you would be frustrated. And then now he's just like the meanest, ugliest character in the series. Just hating for the love of hating, basically, and unable to understand that Hadrian doesn't want power, which is interesting. So it's good. It's good to have a character that you don't like, who's not the villains, quote unquote. We don't see a whole lot of the Cielcid in this book. We see more of the generals, and I don't know. I'm losing my maybe this book is doing it for me, but I feel like I'm losing my like fear of the like generals and the non-main bad guys. We had that really grotesque scene where the Duchess's husband is killed. And if you know the book, you know the scene. I don't really want to describe it in detail, but it's brutal. And you know, for this kind of book, overboard. I don't know. I guess not technically, but it shocked me a little bit, and so maybe that was the point. But I think we got enough shock, and we understand how bad the Cielcid are with like the Black Feast in the previous book. So maybe we didn't need to see that. I don't know. That's my like, what's the moral line of what you show and what you don't show, contending in my brain. It is in my brain now, and I think I'm not sure where else I'm going with that. But yeah, the Cielcid, they're still the bad guys. I thought the way he killed the general, I'm not going to even try to remember or say the name of the general who's on the ship, kind of, you know, cursing him and spiting him and trying to get him to give himself up the entire book. And then he recalls his powers and blows him out the glass like windscreen at the back. That was kind of a cool scene. But you did feel like, hey, why didn't you try to like reverse something with Valka a page before this happened? But that's, you know, it's hard to know. It's, you know, in the moment of grief, you're not thinking necessarily about in that sense, in that way. And maybe anger is what you needed. So I'm not sure. The Jadian prince, Olerin, Kime is his Jadian name. That was interesting, but I like honestly had forgotten from book 1. And I've read this whole book this whole series within the last year. And if you were somebody who read book 1 and then hadn't read anything until this one as they were getting released, I don't know that you're remembering. And I don't know if that has that big of an impact. I mean, Olerin's sword, yes. But I forgot who he was, to be honest. So maybe that's on me. Again, if you read these as they're coming out, was that a huge moment of like, whoa, that's crazy? It just, to me, I was just more confused, and almost to the point of like going back and pulling out the book one and figuring out what I missed. So that was, I think, a moment that was supposed to be cooler than it was. And we have to realize that it's been, I think he's 30 in that book. And I think in this, at the point of this book, he's like 1200 or something. So maybe 1100. He's very, very old. And that's not 1100 necessarily, 1100 years of life. A lot of that's in fugue. He's only a few hundred years old, actually. But what else do I have in my notes here? I don't know that this one, talking about this book in the series rather in the future, will this stand the test of time? Is this going to be some big epic science fiction thing that we'll talk about in 10, 20, 30 years? This book is leaning me away from thinking that it will be. It was a little bit too personal, a little bit too like small almost. It jumps around a bit. It's kind of like fetch quest. And it seemed like there was a bit of Ruocchio kind of writing things in a way to make certain other things happen. And so I don't know. I was very convinced of it in the previous book. I thought, man, this is going to be a series we talk about for a long time. But this one leads me away from that a little bit. And maybe the next book, Disquiet Gods, over here on my desk, which I've started, maybe that one will lean me back towards thinking, yeah, this is going to be an all-time classic. And then we'll see how book 7 wraps all up. But for me, this one kind of steers me away from that a little bit. Something that I wanted to touch on before wrapping this up, I think the lack of weapons improvement is nonsensical, maybe. The fact that in book 1, the worst weapon of the Cielsen is the Nahute, the snake drones that fly and like bore into you. That's their biggest weapon, and over 1,000 years of life, like star date 1,000 years, we haven't gotten anything better than that. Our shields still don't protect us from the Nahute. Those drones get in, they change their speed so they can get inside the shield, and then they drill into the armor. It's hard for me to believe that over 1,000 years you have billions, trillions of people in the galaxy, weaponsmiths. They haven't been able to come up with something to stop that, a flare system, or I don't really know. I don't know what it would be. I'm not a weapons designer, but in our world, in the real Earth world, the last however many thousands of years of like militarized, weaponized warfare that's not just like sticks and rocks, we've advanced so many things. Middle Ages had so much advancement. I'm not a historian, so I'm going to bluff it. I'm going to blunder it on talking about wars, but war is one of the greatest ways to advance technology in society. It just is. And that's not even just that's talking about everything beyond even just weapons and warfare itself. But I don't know. It's just hard for me to believe that the greatest weapon they have we've not found a counter to it. You've not studied these. You haven't captured any Nahute. You haven't figured out a way to, run an EMP that stops them or something. And maybe I missed something in the books, because, this is 5 books that I've read so far of 7. It just seems like we would go, oh yeah, that was a problem 1,000 years ago, but now 1,000 years. It's just hard for me to believe. And again, maybe I missed something, and it's like, yeah, they keep evolving or they keep changing, and we can't stay on top of it, and they're just too powerful. And I know that on a writing level, it's beneficial to go, oh, there's a buzzing in the air, and we know that there's a swarm, a cloud. The sky gets darkened. Is that a cloud? No, it's Nahute. Like, I understand from a writer's standpoint, from a dramatic standpoint, why that is, but it just doesn't seem logical. I think you're evolving and developing things as time goes on. Maybe that's not true. Maybe I don't know anything about warfare, and if a pistol, if a ramrod pistol, you have the thing, you drop a shot in there, and you have some gunpowder, and you shove that rod in that's the kind of gun that you're firing, a single shot rifle, Civil War style. If that's what you're using, that's what you're using for the next 20,000 years. It's hard for me to believe it. So anyway, that's my like main gripe, I think, is the Nahute still being like the big, because especially you see it on that Perfugium Armageddon planet, like everything's getting destroyed, everything's, falling apart. They're fighting the Cielson in these tunnels underground. And the worst thing there is the Nahute. And it's familiar. I understand what's happening, but it's hard for me to believe that we haven't, like, the good guys haven't come up with a counter to that yet. So again, maybe I'm wildly off base and I don't understand anything about warfare and about weapons manufacturing, and who knows, but that to me stuck out as I was getting to the end of the book. I was just thinking, man, I don't know if that's actually what would happen. So anyway, that's my gripe with the story. I am looking forward to reading more. I'm only like 25 pages into Disquiet Gods, but I'm looking forward to continuing on. We've got 2 more. They're long, they're big books. It'll be nice to finish this series and then read some small things. I've got a lot of stuff to get through to read. So we're trying to cruise through as much as we can. But thanks for watching. If you've watched this far, I keep looking at my watch just to see how much time this video has been. It's probably too long, longer than I was thinking it would be. But there was a lot in this book, and the lady on the cover, rest in peace. We'll see what happens going forward, if Hadrian can survive without her, and how tough it will be. So thanks for watching. I said that already, but I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. Maybe about another Sun Eater book, maybe not. We'll see.